When is the best time to start thinking about your genetic portfolio for next year's crop? It actually should be now. On this episode, we catch up with seed specialists Sean Jordal from Illinois and Jeff Jensen from Washington State to learn how Helena's future plots provide valuable local insight to growers for their future germplasm needs. Plus, they'll share some in-season planting tips to help ensure that your crop gets the right start for this planting season. Finally, Jody Lawrence joins us from Nashville for the latest commodity update. And planting season is under the way across the United States, and today we're going to focus on seed and seed placement and some tips on how to have a better crop during your planting season. And joining us today on this particular episode of FieldLink is Jeff Jensen. Jeff is a seed specialist from Pasco, Washington, and his counterpart is Sean Jordal, also a seed specialist from Bloomington, Illinois. And guys, welcome back to FieldLink.
Well, thanks for having me. Pleasure to be on here.
It's an honor to be on here with you, Bill.
All right, guys. Hey, thanks for joining us today. As I said, planting season's underway across the United States. And, let's start off a little bit. Jeff, since you're up in the Northwest, let's talk a little bit about how things are going in the Washington area that you cover. Tell us a little bit about you and your role as a seed specialist for Helena.
Bill, I actually just started about 11 months ago, and so I'm getting to know my role here as the seed specialist. It's gone quite well. I think I put myself as kind of more of a caddy for the guys, where I kind of keep them in line and find the right stuff for them and get it all lined up and get them everything they need so they can take their shot out there. So that's kind of what my role is doing a lot of research, a lot of field work, finding the right products for these guys and getting it in here and getting it out to them. So that's mainly what my job is there. Currently, we're about 30% planted. About 60% of ours is stuff that we can go with real early, and conditions have just been, in my 2 decades, this is probably the best year I've ever seen from a combination of good heat and good moisture to get started. So.
And Jeff, we're talking corn, silage corn, other crops?
This is from a corn standpoint, and it includes both silage and grain. So about 60% of it goes in early, and then there will be a good slew of a later crop that comes in here. We'll call it a second crop that guys will put in starting here in middle of May, and there'll be a whole nother run of stuff going in. So, but as of right now, we're about 30% across the board on all corn in for now. So
wow, that's pretty good progress for the geography that you're in.
We've had the break with the good early heat this year and good moisture. So
that's great. And Sean, I know you're in Central Illinois. You also cover up into Wisconsin. Pretty wide range there as well. How's planting progress going for you, Sean?
So the progress so far is hard at it currently. We've got a string of really great conditions and field conditions. You just couldn't ask for a better seed bed. Some areas have been drier than others, but the freeze-thaw cycle that we saw over the winter has the ground working up really, really well. And so we've got an ideal seed bed with moisture at seeding depth. Progress as far as percentages, probably in Central Illinois, we're probably looking at around 65 to 70% of the soybeans in the field. 4 or 5 years ago, a lot of growers adopted that plant beans first kind of mentality and then come back with corn as we get closer to May, let the ground warm up a little bit more. And I'd say corn's probably, in that 15 to 20% range, with a lot of growers really just getting started on planting corn. This end of last week and over the weekend. So just really getting a good start at it, but guys are making a lot of good progress. It doesn't take long anymore to get that crop in the ground.
Yeah, they're once they get to rocking, they can really roll, can't they, Sean?
Yeah, that seems like that. I'm going to try an 80 to see if it's fit, turns into 800 at a bat of an eye.
It can definitely happen really quick. So, guys, again, thanks for joining us here today on this episode. But what's really neat is having Jeff. We were talking a little earlier, and Sean and myself, we all have got a lot of years of the seed experience here. I know, Jeff, you've been in the industry for 20 plus years in the seed business, and Sean, you've been 20, 30 years as well. We've got a lot of years of experience. And what's neat about that is those are 20, 30 different seasons. Every season is different. But there's always a theme, and there's always some planting tips that we can share with the producers that it never fails. And guys, I want to lean on you a little bit today. What are a couple of your top tips for planting seed this year, and any year for that matter, as you get ready to rock and roll throughout your season?
So I'll just start off, and there's an old adage that I heard a wise farmer once say, is that the sins of planting season will haunt you all year long. And so, making sure that you've dotted your I's and crossed your T's, making sure that we're getting, good seed to soil contact. Seed bed is incredibly important, and growers don't seem to have a problem throwing, $1,000 at a row unit to add the latest and greatest, whatever it is that they think will fix their problem. But sometimes a planter attachment can't fix, what another piece of equipment has done. And so they can, try to remedy it, but, it's a system approach, and it often starts from the fall of the previous year on making sure that we're getting, residue managed correctly. And then in the springtime, making sure that if you are a tillage person, that it's uniform across the tillage equipment. So that way you've got a planter that's going into a uniform seed bed, across all the rows of the planter. If it's a no-till person, making sure that we've got good down pressure, making sure that we're able to keep the row units at depth to make sure that we've got ideal seed placement from both a depth perspective as far as in-row seed spacing as well. So those are some really key things, is, that seed bed management to make sure that we get the best seed to soil contact and that seed placed at the optimum depth, of that 1.75 to 2 inches for corn, slightly shallower for soybeans. In the Northwest, with some of the other crops that Jeff's working with, they're probably quite a bit shallower, and I'll let him talk about those.
Yeah, Jeff, what are some of the typical seed depths that you guys have in the Northwest?
Well, I guess really the only one I could really truly speak to would be corn. I know with our canolas and our alfalfas and stuff, we're looking to get those just, our canola about 1/4 of an inch or so in the ground, and then on alfalfa, some guys leave them broadcast and just send a roller out over there. So we're just looking for 1/4 inch there, just some good compaction, sealed seed soil contact, and a little moisture to get that going. So, but like Sean, I'm a 1.75 to 2 inch guys. I mean, I could put that on my answering machine right now and pretty much take care of 3/4 of my phone calls. But yeah, that's definitely what we're looking for. Like I mentioned to you earlier, I'm a fundamentals guy. So, I give in my winter talks, I'll even talk about it then with guys to get them thinking about it then. But it's, it's seed depth, it's that 2 inches, it's soil temperature. I'm looking for 50 degrees and rising at 9 a.m. in my seed bed, and I'm watching that forecast ahead to make sure that the coming weather is gonna favor what I got going. And also our suppliers have been great. One of our suppliers, I don't know if I can mention them, but I know one of our suppliers sends out plant risk charts to us every week, kind of give us an idea of what the upcoming weather and GDUs look like and whether we're good to go or not. So, just keeping a tabs on your weather and seeing where you're going. Sean, I know you could probably speak to this a lot better. You're an equipment guy, but I see so many guys that just pull the thing out of the barn and blow the dust off and hook it up and go, and end up spending a lot of time fixing it and getting it going again in the field and stuff. So it's always good I know it's a little late now, but for those guys that are still coming, spend a day on that thing and make sure your tubes are right and your all your plates are right and all your brushes and everything and all the openers and everything are ready to go, so that once you hit the field, you can go. Because I've seen that be a problem here in our area. So,
okay. Yeah. Good tip there. Spending that time, a good time to work on your planter is really when you're done planting. It's okay to work on that in July and June after you get everything in the ground. Get it ready for 26 sometimes.
Amen. Amen.
It's an awesome time when things are a little bit slower. Take advantage of that good weather and get after that. Guys, from my experience on the seed side of things, some of the best things that I always coach growers out doing is, as you're planting, stop. go ahead and stop. And you touched on it, Jeff and Sean, both of you, get your seed depth right, but get off that tractor for a little bit and go out to make sure your placements are right and avoid those sins, right, Sean, like you talked about.
Yeah, it doesn't take for just a moment to stop the tractor after you've gone a couple 100 feet and you get up to speed, and then shut it down, walk back, and don't just check on one side of the planter. Make sure that you're checking across the planter. If it's some of these, 24 rows in the Midwest is a pretty dominant configuration. And, do 6 checks across there to make sure at every different section of that planter that you're still running consistently across the machine. Because if you don't, you'll see it either in delayed emergence. We talked about depth of planting, and it's always, I'd rather a guy be deeper than shallow.
Mm-hmm.
There's reams of data that supports, planting greater than 2 inches is less. There's less yield loss than there is of planting shallower than 1 3/4 inches. And so if you find yourself of either of those conditions, always favor, going deeper. If you're trying to find moisture, that's okay, because you're still going to be better off in the end than shallowing, having it too shallow, and then you've got herbicide issues and floppy corn syndrome and a lot of other negative things that go with it. But yeah, Bill, to come back around to your point, it doesn't take long, and you'll regret it if you don't, and you go back out there as that corn's starting to emerge and you don't have all those plants coming up in that ideal 48 to 72 hours.
Yeah, I think that's a good tip, a good addition. And Jeff, you nailed it. Being an old sports kind of guy, it's about the fundamentals. It's about blocking and tackling, isn't it?
Yes, sir. If you don't start there and have those things lined up and going right, those are just so key and so simple, right? These are easy buttons to push. Stopping the tractor in 200 feet is not asking too much. I mean, you're not going to spend half a day checking this stuff. It's real quick, and it's very, very important, and that's why in sports they hammer us when we're young, and that's, as you're getting out of there and getting ready to go every season, it's just so important to remember. Even the best guys, they understand those fundamentals. So, and I couldn't agree with Sean more about, 2 to deeper is always fine. We're just, what we see out here, what we like to get is we get those brace roots set, and the close, a little bit deeper seed bed doesn't hurt us if we get that first node down there where it can sniff dirt and throw those brace roots and help fill that ear a little bit better in the fall. I mean, I couldn't agree more with Sean. Super important. That shallower will kick your butt. If you get her in there a little deeper, and especially chasing moisture, you're always okay there.
Yeah, and that shallower planted corn, boy, if you catch some of those windstorms. I grew up in Nebraska, and oh boy, you'll find you'll pay that real quickly, won't you guys?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
So, guys, let's talk a little bit about some other fundamental things. A lot of planters, and Sean, I know you've got a lot of experience with planters and equipment, but a lot of planters require different fluency agents and so forth. And recently, the Helena Products Group came out with a product called Quick Shot. And Sean, what can you tell us about Quick Shot, and what are growers saying, and how does it fit into, I guess, your planting strategy in Illinois and Wisconsin this year?
Well, whether it's Illinois, Wisconsin, or any of the other states, all the modern planters, especially vacuum planters or central fill planters that are trying to push seed some kind of a distance, or even planters with on-row box units, to help that seed with the treatments that are the insecticide and the fungicide treatments, especially if you get into some higher rates, it gets gritty. And so we want to make sure that seed's moving freely through the system. And so they add fluency agents, talc, graphite. Commonly, an 80-20 blend is used across the system. And that's where a product such as Quick Shot, which is a fluency agent that also has the addition of nutritional additives to it. So nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, zinc, sulfur, and a couple other micronutrients, but it's all combined together. It's a product that you're going to buy irregardless to plant, whether it's at your local big box store or at your local equipment manufacturing store. They've got it on there on the shelf, and you're going to have to use it irregardless. So what a better time than early in the season, give that seed as that seminal root comes out and those early roots start to develop and we get some seed to soil moisture, making, some of those first drinks of water that new plant gets, having a little bit extra nutrition to it and really get it off to a great start. The data that we've, seen internally supports, the cost of the ROI to benefit the grower, about 2.5 to 3 times over what the cost of the investment is. And in today's market, I'll take that any day we can get it. Farming today is not a get rich quick. So we need to look at every dollar spent and make sure that we're going to get a return where we're going to put our money at. And this is definitely one of those scenarios that growers can see, whether it's corn or soybeans. I've used the product this spring. You put it on with a cup, up in either through a talc feeder on a bulk, a seed box tender, or right at the row units, and just add it in over the top, and it mixes in extremely well and is real easy to use product.
Yeah, we've heard some really good feedback from growers. Simple, like you said, Sean. You're doing this process anyhow. Why not pick up a bucket of Quick Shot and know that with Quick Shot, you're going to get the fluency agent that your equipment supplier requires you to use, but you're going to get that extra hit of nutrition as well. So
exactly.
Great little option for producers this year. Guys, let's shift gears a little bit, kind of pivot. And Jeff, let's head up to the Northwest. And you've been working on, and recently I saw some photos of you and your team putting some future plots in with canola. Tell us a little bit about those future plots.
So future plots is, we ran our first ones up here in the Pacific Northwest last year. It kind of hit RBU real heavy last year, and we're going to be building upon what we did here last year in the future. But I'll tell you, Bill, we want to be the leader in this seed game. We want to establish ourselves as the brand where when people look at that Helena logo, they're thinking that we're a seed company also. There was quite a gap when I got here that involved that, and that there was, as we're making our calls and getting out there, guys didn't even realize Helena had seeds. So we're in a very excellent position to use these future plots to our advantage to show folks that we're going to take the lead out here and we are going to be the leader in seed. So our canola plot went in. It's going to be a very educational piece for myself. I'm going to dive in there. It's my first experience with canola, so we're going to be watching that. And then our guys in Pullman will be tending to it. And we'll be having some growers out there later in the season to feature these and showcase these varieties. And we'll do a little field day out there with them and see if we can help grow our business that way.
Jeff, what's really neat about the future plots, it is what it really says. It's about the future. And one of the neat things for some of our listeners that may not know what a future plot is, it's really where Helena works with a variety of key suppliers, global suppliers of germplasm genetics. And we really, with the future plot strategy, take these different varieties and hybrids and place them locally so we can gain local knowledge of, Jeff, like in your area in Pullman, Washington, what hybrids varieties are working the best in your market across a wide range of different suppliers. So that's the future. And I know, Sean, you're doing some down in the Illinois and Wisconsin area. I think you said you've got 2 to 3 planned going in shortly. If not, I've already started.
Yeah, we'll start rolling those out here after we get into May. I wanted to make sure that we had good warm soil conditions and just everything going the right direction as we put these corn and soybean plots in. And these are for our customers to use and our sales teams to use, to have, growers out, get their hands into them, dig into those plots and really, evaluate the placement of the products, the application for where they may or may not work for customers. We're highlighting our key resources of genetic suppliers, and between them, the suppliers, and our own in-house personnel, be able to really bring growers a best strategy going forward as we get ready for the 2026 growing season. Hard to think about since we're just really getting 2025 off and rolling. But, You mentioned earlier that, between the three of us, we're averaging about 25 to 30 years of experience in this industry, and maybe a little bit more if you don't just take out the seed days. But, a grower gets a limited number of times to get it right. And so I really want to see the future plots working as a tool to help growers, be a partner for them to make the best decisions possible for their operation. Maybe change up some ideology of how they've done things in the past, and just to bring them some new ideas that may help them be more profitable and progressive as we go forward. We know that the next couple of years there's going to be, financially really challenging in the world of agriculture. And so we've got to make the best choices possible, looking at the best characteristics, best trait packages, or maybe it's a lack of trait packages to help that grower accomplish the needs that they have on their farm.
Sean, you bring up a really great point. You and I chatted earlier. It's so easy for all of us in the seed business to get so caught up in traits and, technologies. And it's very important, absolutely important. The investment is huge for producers. But it's also important to know your germplasm, understand the genetics and the genetic potential for a hybrid and variety. And as I understand it, Sean, that's what you and Jeff and all the other seed specialists across the country are really leaning into when it comes to the future plots.
Yeah, I think Jeff nailed it really, that we are caddies. And, we're coming off the Masters and a couple of great golf rounds. And, a professional golfer, much like a professional farmer, relies on a resource other than himself to help him make the best decisions and put the best action in play. And so if we can be that partner for those growers that are wanting to help improve their performance of their game or to achieve the optimum goal, then that's what these plots and what we have the ability to do is, traits have done great things to help protect yield. But I think sometimes we tend to forget that that's what the traits were designed to do, is to help protect yield potential. We know that, the high yield, we celebrate yield every year at the National Corn Growers or the Commodity Classic. And guys get trophies and accolades for achieving top end yield. Well, the traits didn't make the yield. The genetics made the yield. And that's all due to the hard work of the plant breeders and all the geneticists that work at all the labs that all of our genetic suppliers help bring forward. We know we can achieve 600 bushel per acre corn. Our average is right around 200 as a nation, just under 200. So there's a big delta there that we've got to help growers, do a better job of putting that overall package together. Hopefully the future plots can help drive them that, because in the ones that we're going to do here, we're overlapping some of our Helena products on top of those to also help protect that yield potential that's out there and help growers achieve the final net of better profitability.
Guys, that's awesome stuff, Sean. Will you be taking our internal as well as growers out to look at these plots this fall?
Yeah, that's the intention, is as we get into the grain fill time period, or even earlier, if a grower wants to see something, get an understanding of what's going on out there. But the idea would be to be able to bring, current customers or prospective customers to those field days. Ideally, I'd like to see them in small groups, because that way we can have better dialogue and better, sharing of information, more open conversation, really dig into, maybe peel that onion back a little bit to find out what concerns that grower has, but then also be able to walk out to the field and show them maybe some options for them in either corn or soybeans, as we're so centrally focused on those here in the Midwest. But, how do we get time? The biggest challenge is getting time with those key growers that we want to do business with. Everybody's busy, and the goal for us is for them to see it as a value and as worth taking the time out of everything else that they have to get done to be in the field and look at that product.
You bet. And Jeff, I know you're kind of getting started and you had some future plots last year. Can you tell us a little bit about, I guess, your plans for training and coaching and utilizing them as a resource for your customers and growers?
Our first group training outing is scheduled already. So we'll be going out and look at emergence and plant vigor and some stuff with staff. We're going to use it as an opportunity to train in staff. We have a very young crew when it comes to even the old guys, when it comes to looking at corn. And so it's an opportunity to educate these guys and get them out rolling so that they can be wise in the field as us old guys are, because they can only get it if we give it to them. So there's plenty of opportunities that we're going to be planning this year for education, but we also be doing formal field days where we're going to be inviting growers in. We're going to take some of that information that we collect in our educational pieces, and we're going to make a nice showcase for folks out there. So part of this is that word, the future, right? Like, we want to keep that forward in this conversation. Part of the reason that we're calling them future plots is because we're showcasing products that are either just come to market or are pre-commercial. So we've got an arrangement with our suppliers to be helping us to see these products before they even go commercial, which right now in the state of hybrid turnover is very, very important. So if I could pick up 1 year extra of data and observation on these, and that puts me a step ahead on my competition come time to sell corn that following season. So very, very important right now with hybrid turnover. We're all dealing with it. It's fast. So like I said, if I can get 1 more year to look at it in front of everybody, I'm getting an advantage.
Jeff, you bring up an awesome point with future plots because, the germplasm is turning much faster than it used to, 20, 30 years ago, heck, even 10 years ago.
Yep.
And today, just broadly speaking, I'd just like to get an idea for our listeners, Jeff, out of your whole portfolio, what on average between all the suppliers are we looking at? 30, 40, 50, 60% turnover in germplasm on an average?
I'd say it'd be closer to 2025.
Okay.
This year was an exceptionally big year for DeKalb out here. I had what I would say are 6 first ballot Hall of Famers that just came off the list. It was quite a shock. So we're trying to hustle and get in position right now to backfill those. We are ahead in some cases, and we know where we're headed. And we'll be searching out this new crop that comes out this year, trying to find a replacement for some of those big heavy headers we had out here. And but yeah, I would say on average it's 20 to 25. I'm in a unique position where I sell the whole entire book. I've sold from 75-day to 120-day corn this year. So I'm in a very wide parameter when it comes to that seed guide out here. And so, yeah, I would say I get a chance to see that. I would say it was probably about 20 to 25%. Then you get, you'll lose 5, 6, 7 key hybrids a year, and then you'll pick up another 3, 4, 5, 6 hybrids a year coming in. So they do a great job. It's just a matter of collecting data, getting confidence in the growers or with the growers, and getting them to be confident and getting rolling in products. It takes a couple of years.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. It's you getting comfortable. It's our salespeople and growers getting comfortable with some of that new germplasm, and that's the beauty of a future plot. You can get out there ahead of the curve a little bit and get comfortable in the field now, so that when 26 comes around, you're ahead of the curve a little bit.
We've already forecast for 26 seed already. So it's like, we need to be a lot further ahead than what folks understand from this standpoint. So,
yeah. Sean, how about you in the Midwest? And I know every year's different. Sounds like Jeff's last year was about 20, 25%. How about your turn rate?
Yeah, the days of a grower having a favorite hybrid for 5 to 7 years is really a rarity. There are some lingering hybrids that still show up that have been around for more than that time period. But the nice thing about the future plot is that it's giving us a head start on things that are coming down the pipeline to build momentum with the growers, both on corn and soybeans. Like Jeff said, there's the 2026 crop is also going in the ground now on foundation and seed production fields. So, they've got a crop plan that all of our genetic suppliers are telling us what they think the focus should be. And then we'll transition that out to our sales teams and then out to our customers as we go through the summertime and into fall, and then really be able to make final decisions on what's going to fit geographically. but it's hard. There's a lot of, trust that needs to be placed with, especially, sales reps that may or may not have a lot of seed experience. And we work closely with genetic suppliers, and they've done the research and they've got the replications done. So, if it's a product that they have a good feel for and has good adaptability, then we need to be able to get on board and get those out with the growers as well.
Yeah, really good stuff, guys. And you're right, Sean, great point. The 26 crop, Jeff, you mentioned it, you forecasted it, and in a lot of places it's already in the ground from a seed perspective. And, we're moving. And that's the beauty of the Future Plus, to bring that forward thinking, what's going to be coming down the road in the next 1, 2, 3 years in the future. So that's why we call them Future Plots. And we have wonderful suppliers that we work with that are major players in the marketplace. And it's great to have that relationship with all of them. Guys, I want to thank you both for joining me on this episode of FieldLink as we share some tips for planting 25, and we look forward through our Future Plot program to learn more what's going to be coming down the road in terms of genetics. And welcome back to FieldLink. I'm your host, Bill Smith, and joining us from Nashville is Jody Lawrence. Jody, it seems like the theme is always tariffs, but there's a lot of other things going on right now, and it's planting progress time. How's the planting progress report coming out right now for growers across the U.S.?
Well, everybody has gotten off to a great start, and today is Tuesday the 29th. And yesterday's planting progress report through the weekend showed that corn was 24% complete and beans were 18% complete. And looking ahead, that what we see this week and the weather and just kind of the general pace of everybody picking it up, because you have a lot of, mid to late April insurance planting dates that pass, that the magic number for almost every crop is if 50% of it gets in before May 15th, then you begin to take away a lot of risk. Now, the risk can still develop later, but the thought of an early planted crop is that it will not, the corn crop will not pollinate in typically the hottest part of July. So, and we've seen the markets react to it, taking premium out. And when you tie that into the, still the tariff uncertainty and the fact that, we're in this is a time when seasonally we slow down our export sales anyway. The market's been under pressure, but it's not necessarily unexpected, especially if you look at all the news, because if I interviewed 100 farmers and asked them, would you rather have your crop in the ground early and coming out great or have corn lose 20 cents, they'll take the crop getting in the ground. So it's the double-edged sword of good planting progress. But with all the technology that's available now, once everybody gets set and gets rolling, if they get 4 or 5 clear days, it's amazing the amount of acres that can be planted now.
It certainly can, with technology advancements. And earlier we talked to our seed specialists about that progress. And, it's amazing how much grain can go in the ground in just a matter of days. Jody, this weather's really, kind of been taken out of the market a little bit. You want to expand on that a little bit more?
Yeah, the market always deals in uncertainties. That's, the time when the February and March time period, the market is trying to adjust to a couple different things. It's trying to set up, okay, do we need more corn or do we need more beans? And then giving a premium to the one that has the shortest supply in the world or the best demand story. And this year it was corn, and corn had that premium over beans. And this is completely untariff related, although everything got intermingled over the last month since Tariff Liberation Day on April 2nd.
Sure.
Or I guess not Tariff Liberation Day, whatever he called it, that as the uncertainties begin to get ticked out of the market, which is, okay, the weather is good. Everybody's off to a good start. This crop is not going to see a massive amount of replant under everything that's happened in the first 3 weeks of really planting. This is not going back, and I can remember several broadcasts that we did. This is not 2019, where you saw 7 or 8 million acres of corn and beans in prevent plant, already knowing, because it started raining April 15th and didn't stop until after Memorial Day in a lot of parts of Indiana and Northwest Ohio and Southern Michigan. So those risks have been taken out because the premium is always added for, or we continue to need to motivate the farmers to plant. We don't want prices to go down before they even get started. Mm-hmm. And because that would be a disincentive. And if you look around where the economics are now, everybody needed all the motivation that they could get.
Yeah. And part of that motivation too, we talk a little bit about, some of the global markets as well. The harvest is kind of wrapping up in South America. They're kind of coming to their tail end. And then we take a look at the value of the dollar. It's certainly impacting exports currently.
Yes, and I'm a little surprised. Not that the dollar fell, because in agriculture, we always talk that a weak dollar benefits our competitiveness in the world, because if the U.S. dollars, let's just say it's at 100, it's a little below that right now, but it was trading 108, 109 after the election. And think about it that way, or this way, for if every one of our importers, it was just stay with Mexico, if they were paying 6 weeks ago $1.09 for corn, they're now paying $1 for corn. Mm-hmm. So and it's even cheaper than that because the price has fallen. But a weak dollar definitely has some benefits, and that's the shortest answer to that, because that could be a program all by itself. But right now, I think we should begin to see, once some of the tariff smoke clears, and they're talking this week that they've got potentially 15 to 20 trade partner deals that should be announced soon. And you've got China saying we haven't talked to them, and you have the U.S. saying we have, which probably means there's some truth in the middle, that some of the lower level trade representatives have been exchanging, hey, when and where can we start type thing. They're preliminary things. But the hope of everybody is that if you were going to tick a few things off quickly, that the immediate for corn would be Mexico, then Canada and EU, just to settle that storm down. But the big one that's on the horizon that could be a huge deal in the long run is that India has shown some real willingness to come talk to the U.S. And even though they're involved in the BRICS thing that we've talked, the Brazil, Russia, India, China, plus some other countries alliance that they're forming, India has come to the realization, and pretty much always has, that now that they are the world's most populous country, about 400 million people more than China, last thing that I looked at, that they're not going to be able to be self-sufficient on food. And although they're predominantly their protein comes from wheat and other grain sources like that, because obviously they are not meat eaters, because the religion, the Hindu religion, everything, right. They could still be a huge importer of U.S. wheat, which pulls everything up.
Yeah, definitely. And, reports this morning, at least that I've heard, India has really stepped up, and before this podcast ends, we could have an announcement potentially coming out, but we'll wait to stay tuned for more information on that particular tariff. Certainly tariffs catching a lot of headlines right now. It's that time, like you mentioned, Jody. There's a lot of chatter right now, and that's certainly creating a little bit of volatility in the grain markets, and hopefully this all settles down over the next couple of weeks.
And we just need any stability in the trade talks, just something that says the path that they have decided on with the 90-day deferral of tariffs on a lot of these key countries and other parts, just, imports, exports out of ag, that they begin to see some deals that this is actually going to produce fruit, because that's the frustrating part of this, that I don't think anybody wants this to drag out any further. Markets hate uncertainty, and the price action certainly shows that there's a lot of uncertainty in this. But if you get a hard copy of the signed trade deal with any of the people that we talked about, you begin to change the dynamic in the market. So that's definitely what we need.
Yep, we're eagerly waiting some of those announcements, hopefully this week. And as you mentioned, it's a little bit of a domino effect. Once one falls, they'll all start to hopefully line up here and get in line for U.S. Consumers as well as growers across the U.S. Jody, I want to thank you for joining us here on this episode of FieldLink, and look forward to our next episode.
All right. Thank you, Bill. And everybody stay safe while you're planting, and good luck with the crop going in the ground.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of FieldLink. Be sure to contact your local Helena representative to check out the closest Helena future plot in your market and experience tomorrow's genetics today.